In any clinical trial, there are two things that are absolutely non-negotiable: patient safety and data integrity. If you get those wrong, the entire trial is at risk. That's why we're going to focus on a critical piece of that puzzle today: Good Manufacturing Practice, or GMP Annex 13. Think of this as your essential guide for handling investigational medicinal products the right way. Here's our roadmap. We'll start by defining exactly what an IMP is, and then we'll unpack the unique challenges they bring to the table. We'll meet the key players involved, trace the journey of an IMP from the factory to your clinic, and then really zero in on the critical procedures you need to master on site. All right, let's get started. So, first things first, we need to build a solid foundation. Before we can talk about managing these products, we have to be perfectly clear on what an investigational medicinal product really is. An investigational medicinal product, or IMP for short, is the active drug or even a placebo that's being tested in a clinical trial. But here's a really crucial point. This definition also covers products that are already on the market. That's right, if an approved drug is being used in a new way, maybe for a new condition, at a different dose, or even just packaged differently for a trial, it's now considered an IMP. And that brings us to the core challenge, which is really the whole reason Annex 13 even exists. You see, working with IMPs adds a whole new layer of risk and complexity that you just don't find with standard market-approved drugs. Which leads to a pretty logical question, right? If we already have good manufacturing practice guidelines, why on earth do we need a special annex just for IMPs? What makes them so different? Well, this comparison right here tells the whole story. With approved drugs, everything is known. You have fixed routines, fully validated processes, you have a complete picture of the drug's potency and toxicity. It's predictable. But with IMPs, it's pretty much the exact opposite. Routines aren't fixed yet, the process isn't fully validated, and our knowledge of the drug's effects is, by definition, incomplete. Then, you throw in the complexities of blinding and randomization for the trial, and you can see how the risk factor just shoots way up. And this is precisely where Annex 13 comes into play. It takes those core GMP principles and applies them to this unique, high-risk environment. It's there to make sure manufacturing problems don't torpedo the trial results. It demands consistency from one batch to the next, so the data is reliable. And it creates a paper trail to document every single change as the product evolves. It's a framework that's built to be tough, but also flexible enough to adapt as we learn more. Now, managing all this complexity isn't a one-person job. It's a team effort. So let's meet the three key players who have very specific and very vital responsibilities for every single IMP. First up is the sponsor. The easiest way to think of them is as the project owner, or the captain of the ship. They have the ultimate, high-level responsibility for the entire clinical trial. And a huge part of their job is providing crystal clear, written procedures for how that IMP needs to be handled every step of the way. Next, you've got the manufacturer. These are the people with the hands-on responsibility for quality. They take the order from the sponsor, and they are the ones who physically produce, package, and label the IMP. It's on them to make sure their quality systems are robust enough for the job. And finally, there's the qualified person, or QP. This person is the ultimate gatekeeper of quality. They're the ones who verify that the manufacturer's quality systems are actually working, and this is the most important part: they give the final green light, the final approval that allows a batch of IMPs to be released and shipped to trial sites. Nothing moves without their signature. Okay, so now we know the players. Let's see how they all work together in the real world. We're going to trace the path of an IMP all the way from the initial order until it lands on your doorstep at the clinical trial site. The whole process is very logical when you break it down. It all kicks off with the sponsor placing an order, then the manufacturer gets to work producing and preparing the product. Our gatekeeper, the QP, inspects everything and releases the batch. Only then can it be shipped to the trial site, where that final, super important step happens: receipt and verification. You know, a massive part of this whole journey is the label. It is so much more than a sticker. It's a critical document for safety and for data. It absolutely has to state who to contact, what the product is, its batch and trial code so it can be traced, which subject it's for, and of course, the big safety items like the storage conditions and the expiration date. And all of that leads us right here, to the moment of truth. The IMP shipment arrives at your site. What you do in these first few minutes is honestly one of the most important responsibilities you have in upholding GMP. This assessment has to happen the second it arrives, before it goes into storage. Start with the basics. Look at the outer package. Is it damaged? Does it look like it's been tampered with?
Next, check the paperwork. Are all the documents you're expecting there? Then, confirm this shipment is actually for a trial at your site. And, critically, check that label for the correct study number and a valid expiry date. Once those first checks are done, you keep going. Double-check the patient ID and the dosage information. Verify that its storage requirements match what your facility can provide. Make sure you have the batch certification from the qualified person. And finally, if there's a temperature monitor included, check its data. That little device tells the story of the product's integrity during its trip to you. So, you're going through your checklist, but what if something is wrong? The package is damaged, the temperature is out of range, the paperwork's missing. What is the one single, most important action you have to take? Quarantine. That's it. There is no other option. If you have any doubt whatsoever about the integrity of that shipment, it must be quarantined immediately. And when this happens, you have to follow the quarantine procedure to the letter. No exceptions. First, you contact the sponsor right away. Under no circumstances should you use the product. You need to clearly label the shipment quarantine and then move it to a secure area with restricted access. And remember, you still have to maintain its required storage conditions, even in quarantine, until the sponsor tells you what to do next. Okay, let's bring all this together now and really reflect on your personal role in this critical process of upholding good manufacturing practice. The message of Annex 13 is really clear. It exists to manage that extra risk and complexity that comes with IMPs. It gives us a strong framework that is also flexible enough for the realities of drug development. But it's not just a document. It depends on trained people like you who understand their specific role. Because ultimately, following these principles is how we protect our patients and how we ensure the integrity of our data. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final question to really think about. Take an honest look at your facility's processes, at your own training. Are your procedures truly robust enough to manage the risks we've just discussed and to fulfill your most important responsibility, ensuring patient safety?